definitely getting my foot in the door. It was very mature for my age in the way that I navigated and was able to secure paying gigs. It's not about wearing a suit and tie or how you talk. It's more about authenticity, who you are, and just being able to be committed to the work and being able to show up and deliver.
Hello, my fellow Martians. My name is Harry Mars, and this is the On Mars Pod, where we take a deep dive into creative professionals, entrepreneurs, and other inspiring Martians alike. Today, we are joined by XXIST Design Co. founder and designer, Akili Greer.
I'm out there, no job. He was just the worst boss I've ever worked for. He was the shining light for what it took for me to understand what I was like, okay, I know this freelance shit. It can't be tough. I was like, it's better than working for people like that.
Hello, my fellow Martians. Today on Mars, we are joined by one of my first friends in Arizona. So a UI designer here with heavy experience in a lot of different design fields. So there's a quote that I actually found online. When he's not working, Akili's usually working. This diehard designer never stops making art. This quote about Akili really sums up his passion. And that's why I'm really honored to have you on today. Everyone, welcome, Akili Greer.
Appreciate it. Thank you, my man.
Yeah,
Of
course.
Blessed to be here, my man. Where'd you get that? You get that from my job bio?
I did, bro.
Yeah,
I
was like,
did.
good shit, bro.
I did a little
Yes,
research.
bro. My man does his research, y'all. I'm blessed to be here, bro. Yeah, man. I've been a UI designer for the most part for the last 2 years. Prior to that, brand illustration, heavy advanced drawing and planing coming up. Just always been artistic. And as we get into it, you'll very what's the word? Is it multi-hyphenate?
Multifaceted?
Multifaceted? Yeah.
I don't know,
Something
but
like that. Something
this
like that.
guy's multi-talented. That's what it
Yeah, it
is.
is.
So on Mars, we profile different creative professionals, entrepreneurs, and other inspirational Martians. So let's just get into it, man. So the beginning, when you're growing up, you're surrounded by family that's, really supportive of the arts and singing, dancing, and, you're surrounded by that type of energy. Can you speak on that and how that kind of influenced you
For
growing
sure,
up?
bro. Yup. Yeah, so young, African American kid growing up in South Phoenix, Arizona. Um, it was me and my mom, and we all lived in my grandma's house for the most part. But me and my mom, we moved around a lot around the greater Phoenix area. So I got the opportunity to meet a lot of different cultures, but also change up schools a little bit. But as far as my art career and my ambitions, that kind of fit closely to home in regards to my upbringing at church, heavy in singing, what I'm saying, in the Christian upbringing, you're gonna get a lot of choir, and a lot of background in R&B, a little bit of that. So it heavily influenced me as an artist to tap in early in my soul and try to express that in many ways. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, and that kind of ties into the next thing, like early loves, and that's kind of music and singing and dancing, and that's just because that's what you grew up on. And
Facts.
it's interesting how those things early on kind of play into who you end up becoming. And we've had this discussion in the past where it's kind of like sparks of who you end up becoming as an adult. You can see as a child. Um, so yeah, man. So after that, so you're growing up and you go into things as well as like theater and so you're singing and going into theater. And can you talk on it's Valley Youth Theater, is that right?
That is right. Yeah,
Okay.
Valley Youth Theater. Yeah. So I did a lot of theater, a lot of mixing around in the arts to kind of figure out my path in my early youth. Coming into high school, I was prior to high school actually. Before I was a freshman, I ended up going to Valley Youth Theater where I performed there in a play called The Wiz. And we did that like 2 years in a row. The second year, we got an opportunity to perform at the Herberger Theater, which is a larger theater in the center of city of Phoenix. And then after that, I went all over Phoenix and all sorts of different theaters and different museum companies that were offering stage plays and musical events. That's kind of where I built a career. I say for like probably like 2 or 3 years before I got into high school. But high school is where I obviously, navigated, found art, joined the arts program at South Mountain, and that's where the story, I guess, the history ever since. So, but yeah, man, early growing up, theater was definitely my calling. Singing, musicals. Met people in the likes of like Jordin Sparks before her career even became as big as it was. We were just all young city Phoenix kids that were growing up with a passion for music and arts and just like doing our thing. So yeah, I was definitely influenced by a lot of that.
So you mentioned Jordin Sparks. You were in class like with Jordin Sparks. Is
Not
that
we
kind
didn't
of
go
how
to
it works?
school
Like,
together, but it
or
was
like in theater? I guess
yeah,
theater class. I don't know.
yeah, right.
Is that kind of how you put it, or like the theater group?
So it's like it was a play that you'd audition for, and we would have obviously like rehearsals until it was actually time to perform the play, and we would do it like every weekend and throughout the week for like schools and students, and people would pay to actually come to the shows to give money and donate to the theater. We weren't getting paid for Valley Youth, of course, because we were kids. But they are theaters that would pay you, of course, to perform throughout the valley because they're a little more upscale and they offer a lot more to the audience. So,
So Jordin Sparks and you were in the Wiz in those like early 2000s. Like so you guys were in that same play. I
2000.
mean, that was early days. I mean, because there's some Jordin Sparks and then also Emma Stone is from right?
Valley Youth Theater. She
Yeah,
was
Valley
part
Youth
of the
Theater,
Valley
right?
Youth
Yeah. She
Theater.
wasn't in that play specifically,
No,
but
no, no, no. She
she's
just
like known for being
coming from
from
that camp.
coming from that
Yeah,
camp of
is a
yeah.
lot of the actors and a lot of big names have started, with the Valley Youth Theater. I guess you could say it was one of those the more prominent big names that started here in Arizona that kind of gave people a platform, especially as a youth, to get your footing in the door as a youth if you wanted to pursue a career in acting.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Yeah, so you touch on how that was before high school.
Yep, yep. Yeah, so my last play was probably like 2003, 2004, so I was like 14. A lot of this stuff I was really young. So I wasn't the most mature kid getting into that career, but I was definitely getting my foot in the door and kind of got it was very mature for my age in the way that I navigated and was able to secure paying gigs. But getting into high school, advanced drawing and painting was the pursuit. Once I got locked into that, South Mountain High School had a what's called a magnet program, and so regardless of where you lived, they would get a bus and get you, to their campus to be able to be enrolled in not only their core studies, but as well as your whatever electives you wanted to be part of. And I was still in the district, but I wanted to focus on drawing and painting because although those were my or early career ambitions as a kid, I guess you could say acting and like music, I was still heavily influenced by art. I was a latchkey kid sometimes because mom, I grew up a single parent, so she worked. So sometimes I had to come home, get off the bus, watch TV. You know what I'm saying before mom got home, whatever. So Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, all the cartoons, all the shows, Toonami. You know what I'm saying Adult Swim, like those heavily influenced me alongside my ambitions as far as creating my art, style. And so it was starting there that things started to take off in a different direction for me. That I started to realize, all right, drama ain't it. I think art's my calling. And I'm gonna start picking this up a lot more. So
So in high school is really really important for you, to take those classes in the creative arts and realize that this is your calling. And you mentioned that the early influences like cartoons and watching those animations and kind of seeing the art styles and drawing the characters and in your free time, and that was just something that you really love to do. So those early loves, that's kind of what sparked that interest to actually make that a career.
right early on, because I honestly didn't know what it was gonna be for me. It was like I liked animating, I like illustrating. I didn't know what it was gonna be still. I just knew it had to be art to some degree. And even still going after high school, I definitely did a lot of college elective stuff. Throughout that time, trying to focus on what should it be. So I even took some art history classes, got to understand a little bit about computer graphics, and in that time, I started to realize I was going to be able to like transition a bit. But I didn't continue out through high school, primarily because, or not high school, college, because everybody has that thing with college, as far as what your degree is going to be and what you're going to aspire to be and what college classes you have to take in order to do that. For me, it was just, I was happy to have the software and, be able to explore and play with it and experiment and
Right.
try to implement those same strategies that I was able to learn, anywhere on my own. And so during that time, I just got heavily influenced by just working, being able to earn my money and spend that on like technology. You know what I'm saying? I was in the pirate age, you know what I'm saying? I was, on the hush. I was a LimeWire kid, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
totally.
I knew what Pirate Bay was, you know what I'm saying? I was tapping in, trying to do whatever I can to get the latest and greatest, you know what I'm saying, watching tutorials and things, trying to figure it out. I was even downloading freaking textbooks that they had for like
Like
some of the
college
art
textbooks, yeah.
institutes and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that. I would download the Adobe books just so I could have access. It's like same technique, same information. I was just averaging it up to find it myself. So like during that time, I still didn't know if I wanted to be a designer. I just knew I wanted to learn how to use these things on my own because hell, I got heavily influenced even back in the music. I was, making music and figuring out how to create, digital art and create covers, so I was
Yeah.
doing it for here and there. And so during that age, it was just kind of like I would say like the little renaissance, it was just like everybody was tapping in and had access to some any old Dell or Toshiba you had your hands on and just trying to crack the code, you know what I mean? And so aside from like MySpace, trying to HTML and design their own little project and things like that on the side, you know what I'm saying? They were hobbies at first, right? Little things you would do to kill the time, but essentially I guess they started to fill the gaps and turn into something real for me. Um, and as I started to apply standards and started like really getting my key fundamentals like mastered, I started implementing those same strategies for other people and services and started to realize how good I was. And so it just kind of created an avenue. And after that, and just kind of took off ever since. Um, it's hard, because like late in the game, because obviously most people would intern and come out of college or school and like go into a corporate or agency field. But for me, it was more like, I just was ready to tackle it, freelance. Oh, sorry. I was ready to tackle it freelance running and just get myself out there and see what I can do to learn while I was, earning that experience, until opportunity knocked at the door. And next thing you know, boom, I'm in the industry. I'm working with the award-winning agency, and I'm able to kind of elevate my standards and get an understanding of how to interact with people on that certain level and that business acumen, so.
Yeah, and I mean that just kind of shows how important those early passions and early things that you do for the love with the homies play into who you end up being and like to now where you're working for, top tier agency, pitching high level projects. But I know you were into like physical street art as well and like graffiti and that type of you were cold with that type of style as well,
Yeah,
which kind
man.
of bled into like tattooing as well and like that type of art and you even like tattooed yourself.
It's true.
So
It's
like
true.
that's I feel like all those are kind of just like cool little things that are like not necessarily graphic design, but that's a whole nother like avenue of art that like you
Obsessive, I guess you could call it. Yeah, for sure.
it's like but that's like a true like you're like a true like I guess like um I don't know, student of the game. Like you just like there's so many different avenues of art that you have like dipped your toe into, physical, digital, paint, brush, graphite,
Yeah,
like everything. Which is sick, dude. I think that's awesome.
for sure.
Which of your tattoos did you do yourself?
Man. So a lot of stuff got covered up by my boy that I grew up with, actually, that we used to do a lot of street art with. We never actually like street art tagged walls or anything. We would never do
Right.
any like illegal graffiti or stuff like that. But we did like a lot of like canvases and a lot of like uh, paid interactions.
Yeah.
And so
It's like commission style
commission
work, but it
work.
had like the graffiti style. So it wasn't
Yeah,
they weren't
yeah.
going around bombing buildings,
Nah,
guys.
nah, nah. We
But
wasn't doing that. That's
no,
not the
they
life I
they
live.
had the style though.
Yep. So like starting then, like my boy, he heavy into tattooing now. So like a lot of my early stuff, I did a lot on my arm, and I had him do like some cover up just because it was a lot of early stuff. And now that he's fulfilled, that role professionally, I'm excited to just let him do his thing. But early in, I got a couple on my legs. What I mean, stuff that I'm probably going to end up getting covered up too eventually in the years. But as I was starting out, I had my own kit, tattooed on myself, tattooed on a couple of friends, family members, things like that. So little, symbols, little insignias to kind of get the ball rolling. Nothing too crazy, too large. But yeah, those are my avenues. It was a passion I was definitely pursuing early. You know what I'm saying? In between jobs, while still trying to figure out how am I gonna adapt art in some way? Because like I still have my graphic arts, but I also wanted to do traditional stuff, and I was
Yeah.
still mixing and blending it all together. Because overall, it's just that's just what I was, a multi hyphenate artist and mixed media as well. So it was just my thing. Uh, so like growing up, it was uh, it was easy for me to just kind of move in with confidence, I guess. It never really kind of deterred me, and I was excited to just kind of gain up on the supplies and try something new, and potentially have like a new arsenal that I can add to the repertoire.
Yeah, for sure. And this is when you're still trying to figure out the the real like concrete direction of your creative
Yeah.
career, I guess you could
It
say.
was probably like early 2000. Sheesh. That was like, yeah, I'd say like 2010, 2011.
Yeah,
It was early on.
super early, yeah.
I was out of high school, years out of high school, out of in them college years, but like still kind of exploring it. I was mixing it all up and doing it all, a bit of both. I was doing ink drawings and illustrations. I was doing street drops, even where I would do a illustration and drop it somewhere, and mark the location on social media where people that would actually like fans of my art would go and pick it up, and they'd be able to keep that an actual traditional hand piece. After I'd scan it in and be able to make prints or copies, but that would be my way to like give back to some fans and people who were loyal to the cause. But yeah, those are the early years. As of now, obviously a lot has died down. I've heavily focused on digital mediums and just trying to wrap my head around web and shit. So things have come way far from the traditional means of art that I used to dabble in, because I don't do a lot of product now. Now I'm just like designing in service for clients to facilitate a bigger product in mind. And so because I've done that consistently over the years, I'm able to try to add a more of an artistic flair to some of those processes and those strategies. And so that's kind of where I feel excited and purposeful now, I guess. But growing up, there were definitely a lot of different avenues, man. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and the whole time while you're still trying to find like your footing, you were working jobs and
Hmm.
can you
Yeah,
speak on like how that's important, like as you're trying to be a freelance, like having the stability to like work a job so you have money coming in, but
right.
then also use your free time to try kickstart something on the side, and just the importance of not necessarily like just risking it all and just going full on like at the beginning,
Right, right.
later on in your life sometimes there's a little bit of justification where like your positioning or your ability and your marketing ability at that point, and then once you're established as an artist, to like take that leap of faith, sometimes that proves to be like the best option for some people. It's like quit their
Mhm.
job and like go for it type deal.
True, true.
But at the beginning, though, like when you don't necessarily know exactly where you're at, you don't necessarily have experience. Would you say that that's like that is best that you do it that way? Would you say that that's like the better way to do it? Like have that stability?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because you're sure gonna face that. Like, I guess it's different for everybody, for sure. Because like fresh out of college, of course, some people get that internship opportunity,
Oh,
right?
right.
And sometimes, majority of the time, it may or may not be a paid opportunity, so they still got to work, or they're living off of school money, still just trying to facilitate and get by while they're learning on the job. And then after maybe 6 months. They are, gifted the opportunity to actually be on salary, and so for me, that wasn't the option. And so for me, it was definitely important to be able to work a regular 9 to 5, of course, to be able to maintain a stable life while I was able to facilitate what I loved as a hobby. And I guess it really does separate me from those who pursue it in school. Not to say that they aren't passionate, but it definitely takes a different level of discipline to want to apply yourself to something that's not accredited, and still hopes and passions that you will be able to secure some type of living standard, and having that mindset. And so early on, I was trying to adopt that just because I saw that there were early adaptations of like career seekers who were able to get in there without a degree, or people at least who were iconic in as an artist overall and had some type of a background that didn't present itself from a collegiate or scholarly, academic, heavy background. So it's just like I was early on like, okay, I know I'm gonna work, but if I want this, I'm gonna have to try to make time for this, and I'm gonna have to study as if I was in school. And I was even though I wouldn't say I was like heavy scholarly or academic, I was definitely a kid that was about my education. I still took early college classes while I was in high school and things like that. So I was able to knock out a lot of core studies, things like that. So it's crazy that I didn't pursue a college career, but somewhere along the lines, I just felt like it wasn't for me. And working alongside pursuing my dreams just felt more important for me. And I think what really maintained that was I started early at the airport. I was in TSA even when I got out of college. They didn't offer flight benefits, but I got used to the corporate feel of what it was like to navigate in that environment, in that space, but also have an airport job, and eventually being able to seek. I had other jobs in between there, but eventually being able to seek opportunity with American Airlines, where I met my boy Harry here. You know what I mean? And then after that, I then secured an actual job in the industry, doing full time design and vector graphics and things like that, starting small. But like that opportunity definitely came in support of a job in a 9 to 5. Got to like build that runway,
Totally.
and then like uh, once you got that 6 months, if you wanted to quit, you know what I mean, and just like prioritize going into the industry and try to like go freelance, then you can do that. But you gotta definitely have some runway or some kind of support system.
Yeah. And at the beginning too, you touched on like how it's almost like the mindset of going into an industry where the industry standard is that you go to design school, you get a degree from a accredited school of design or art school of some sort, you get your BA or whatever that is, whatever that looks like. And if you don't have those credits, you're not even considered, a lot of the times. And it's almost like there's obviously nowadays things are a bit different, but even then when you were graduating and figuring out that graphic design is something that you wanted to do, what the heck is this guy doing?
Trying to get up there.
Guess so.
Go ahead, Theo. Go ahead.
Theo, what are you doing?
You got it. Yeah.
So like when you were getting started, like when you figured out that you wanted to be in that field for real, and that's an intimidating thing that I'm sure a lot of people watching this that are graphic artists or even just artists in general that want to be in the industry, that maybe are in college, aren't in college, haven't finished college, whatever the case is, that maybe they feel that pressure of like, if I don't have my degree, I'm not going to get hired.
Gotcha. Right.
When it's just like, that proved obviously not be the case. It's just all about it's all about the person and what positions you put yourself in, what kind of like rooms you put yourself into, and with the internet, that totally changed everything.
Right. That and like just like your core focus. Like there are a lot of jobs out there that are seeking entry level designers. And if you're you got a little discipline and you're able to just stay consistent, they're willing to take you on. And that's kind of where I was able to kind of creep into the door. Where I am at now, I definitely didn't start here, but I was able to get an understanding of like what it's like to know what it's like to facilitate an art job or career, where I was able to maintain software and using software to facilitate a service to people full time. and being able to try to communicate best practices through that software and their ideas and in a way where we can have like an executable deliverable,
Yeah.
and people can run away happy with that. And so doing that successfully for myself consistently throughout, getting your, like they say, get your 10,000 hours and just being at home, experimenting and figuring out how to implement these traditional norms that I understood into a digital philosophy. And using, of course, like I said, those books helped me to just better understand the software, of course. And YouTube, in the early days of YouTube, there were still people out there that was dropping, content, the mentors and the people that were not only like probably teaching these courses at these prestige schools were also dropping videos online on how to do these things. So to me, it was all the same. And so that just kind of cracked open doors. Once I started learning with, vector software, went from a place called like Action Illustrated, where I did like t-shirt vector graphics, a lot of like complex illustrations and arts working in like Illustrator. So I got to understand scalable vector graphics at a time where we were still like try getting people to convey and understand like bitmap and digital arts and graphics and things like that. So like Adobe in their early years were like pushing the limits, and I was doing that for the people who were trying to implement that same stuff when they were printing on like t-shirts, moving into like, what was that? Not screen printing.
DTG.
Not DTG came soon after, but it was even what was it? Just the iron-on press, where
Oh,
people were
yeah.
like just the vinyl. I'm sorry,
Vinyl,
vinyl.
yeah,
Yeah.
of course,
So vinyl
of
was like
course.
the method where it was just like cut out solid colors and press those bad boys down, heavy jersey knit tees. And so those graphics were essential for that. And it was cheap, easy one-offs. Anybody could do it at home, get your Cricut out. And so people were cutting out these complex vector graphics at home with their Cricut, creating mad t-shirts. And like the industry was like blowing up during that time. And transition maybe like 3 years later. I want to make sure my math is right. No, terrible.
Okay.
I ended up at where I'm doing things with again, more Illustrator, Adobe, but I was using like Coral Draw to like do these large graphics and like large scale print for wraps and like vehicles, RVs, boats, all sorts of stuff. High end cars, luxury models, trying to like refurbish and make these bad boys look like the old schools with the painted stripes on them. You know what I mean? So we
Yeah.
were doing all sorts of stuff. There, I was able to really learn how to turn around fast art, but also deliver for a customer right then and there over the counter, take their ideas at a low level, but try to still keep that quality. Because at that level, entry level, when you're spending low money to just get graphics out the door, they're not worried about how it's gonna look. Well, they worry about how it's gonna look, but they can't spin the wheels on it too many times in those concept ideas. They can only just kind of, you got to be able to take what they got and run with it.
Get it out as soon as
Get a
possible,
good font. I mean, here's a pre-selected fonts we got to look for. We're not gonna go looking online and buy new fonts. None of that other stuff. Like, we're not even thinking down that line. They come in. If they come in with that stuff, cool. The more the merrier. That works. But often, we're starting from scratch more than often, and so that was that fast-paced sales environment kind of gave me my customer service business acumen when it came to art, prior to obviously our prestige American Airlines customer service days, which is up here. I don't think you can offer anything better than our customer service standards. Like, we are professionals. No matter where you take us, we are just those guys. But we could get you anywhere. But anyways, yeah, bro. Like, coming out of those eras, and once COVID hit, COVID hit. That was me with my runway, bro. I'm out there, no job, getting them stimmies. Them stimmies was my runway, and that gave me the opportunity to just like, hey, I'm out here. I'm a designer. What's up? You know what I'm saying? Of course, it was a little more structured than that, but that was
Totally.
kind of, I was putting myself out there. I was, putting proposals together, making invoices, and just trying to facilitate what more stood on the design and agency side to kind of support a full team and a guy that would want to like carry himself as a professional freelancer. And I think that's kind of what kind of helped me open the door for what I knew I was capable of, but never really took steps to initiate. And once I now started landing, my first like 4-figure gigs, my first, I was like, okay, I see it. I see it. Then I was like 5 figures. What's this? And it's like, I tapped into an agency where they were hiring me on as a unicorn. I was like, okay, I think I'm here. I think I'm here because, constantly second guessing yourself. We all have that imposter syndrome. You know what I'm saying? It's tough. You want to go to day, but there are moments where you can take a risk and you just mark them as milestones and you say to yourself, yeah, this is it. Now, on to the next thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that was the one that kind of got messed up by COVID, and you ended up leaving that place. And then were you collecting unemployment while you were kind of trying to figure out the next moves?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So I was
you were
on
able to like not
unemployment.
necessarily. Okay, cool.
He had to lay everybody off because it was it was a whole shop. And when you got no more cars, and a lot of the only people that were coming like were probably like emergency and what were they called? Emergency or
First responders type.
first responders, but like the essential workers,
Essential workers.
Yeah, essential workers. So there were certain
Right.
medical vehicles and certain city contracts that they had to still facilitate, like buses we were wrapping buses with like numbers and high school numbers and
Like
RC
public
stuff,
buses?
public buses.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, trucker cars. We would do trucker decals, the little letterings for RC numbers. So that stuff was always a consistent need and flow. But when you don't need a whole fleet of people to do it, you only need a small team when the numbers are trickling down. So he was gonna let people go. And on top of that, he was just the worst boss I've ever worked for. He was the shining light for what it took for me to understand what I was like, okay, I know this freelance shit. It can't be tough. I was like, it's better than working for people like that.
Yeah.
And so it definitely opened the door. So yeah, collecting unemployment, and then the stimmy, you know what I mean? That
Right.
stimmy
Yeah, them
was coming
stimmies
through.
came in
Yeah.
fat.
I was like, yo, the stimmy going to the business. I got a little business. I was able to secure better equipment. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? I was like, let me upgrade my equipment so I could spin this stuff a little faster. And that really kind of stepped things up a bit more. I was able to actually apply what I was spending my money on to my processes. And I think that's important. A lot of the fundamentals are there when you're experimenting and you're excited to kind of spin the wheels and create something new. You lose sight of the goal in the job. And so it's hard to detach yourself from the idea that, hey, I'm creating something that's mine, and you guys should appreciate it and it should be used the way it should be used. But during that time when you just got to be making bread and the job got to go out the door, we got to get to the next job, and you got to understand the value of the work and the client and what their next move is. There's really a lot of moving parts to consider. And so it gave me the opportunity to really understand the business side of this thing and how to level it to an extent where I'm working with people who really care about it versus people who just kind of need something to move along. And they all need priority. It's just being able to set that pathway and see the person who's coming in with I just need something right now. Okay, yeah, right now, but I'm pretty sure you want to be here one day. And with the right level of intent and the right processes, 5 to 10 years, with any business sense, you would hope that that's the relationship you want to develop versus just getting that money and getting them out the door. And so hopefully, those are the type of clients you want to mesh yourself with, people who essentially are just trying to develop a relationship. They're trying to build something purposeful, and really trying to add something to, to the community or to the world even. Once you fill that void, you start to become a little more happy, purposeful with your work, and the gaps start to fill in, and that's kind of where I'm starting to notice. So a little more effort. I'm hoping I could be in a good place to pursue what I'm really pursuing, which is even being on my own or being in my own agency. You know what I'm saying, one day. Although I'm obviously prioritizing my own agency, I would definitely love to do that full time one day. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I mean, you were kind of when you were before you got hired on with Oomph, you were doing like brand identity projects around the valley, and I feel like that was kind of like your first real, because that was all freelance, right? That was all solo, without an agency backing. So that was kind of like a real like proof of concept that you can do that. So I think like the evolution is kind of changing your business model up and like your marketing and like pitching yourself and things that you're working on now. But like you could absolutely like I 100% see like the transition of you going from being agency backed to being the agency. I could absolutely see that transition happening sooner than later, because you've already done it in the past, which is just Yeah, you showed yourself. It showed the world that like you can do it already. So
True.
yeah, kind of touch on like moving into that like new business model. And you know, we talked about companies out here like Design Joy.
Mm.
You kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
kind of talk about their the model.
So like with me with the Exist Design Company, I've been moving that along for the while, for the longest, and that was me just doing business as Exist Design Company, still kind of like your own one man shop. And I think majority of designers coming up in my era kind of had that same facilitation where it was like, you know, I'm me, but I also have an agency name, and this is kind of how I represent myself. And I'm just trying to, you know, facilitate that role, you know. And as we all grew, navigating that space, it's almost like we grew accustomed to kind of trying to figure out how to create a pricing model or some way to get these clients to buy in and want to be a part of our service offerings, where we don't always have to either go to the value pricing model, or are we getting people like on retainers? Do we want them to subscribe? You know, or are we just going to take them bit by bit, you know, hourly, which is also a very tough thing to navigate. And so as of recently, I saw, yeah, product, was it Design Joy? Yeah. He's a local dude. I saw a lot of his content circulating, even like the last couple of months. And it's just like very like mind exploding from like navigating his ideology from taking like the software and project management and having like that agency experience, but also incorporating that same easy structure in your design service offering where it's just like, here's a subscription, here's a flat, easy rate, you know what I'm saying? And we can just get the ball rolling from there, delivering high quality, you know, standard of work, but being able to like facilitate the need to not have meeting cadence or like complicated overpricey hours and like freelancers that want to like navigate those complex strategies. I don't want to always cut those out because I think those are still very important, because certain clients obviously need sometimes that hand-on approach, and so sometimes they may need a special pricing structure depending on the interaction. So I'll always be there to offer that. But I thought it was very cool the way that he approached it, as a one-man shop and being very successful operating that one-man shop. But he was very transparent in how it takes a lot of work. It does take a lot of man hours, but you definitely need to be good. You need to be able to understand these processes. He definitely comes from a senior designer background before he actually left his job, and ended up like prioritizing his own career aspirations for his own agency. So I'm like, okay, I get that. Like that kind of feels like a good pathway to kind of navigate that space. If you're in an agency level job, you're able to kind of take some of those things in because he also come from our background where it's like no college, just kind of self-taught, built up from there, got the opportunity to get in the door, learned on the job. Now it's, you know, facilitating a a $1 million company within a couple of years, you know, on his own, and being able to secure at least like $250,000 every month with like decent clients within a process that just seems very simple, very easy, cut and dry, and easy for any designer to kind of facilitate and offer if they're ready to adopt it. So with the Exist Design Company, my company, I've been doing that. As of lately, I offer a membership service, which also kind of has strengths with my core backing in web design, illustration, and branding. So you'll see my stuff with a little more of a, you know, cultural influence, a little more of a style that kind of reassures people that I can deliver that work on this, you know, on that top tier quality of scale, but also still have that creative influence that heavily supports my aspirations as an African American designer, coming up and representing a large community of Black and Brown people that are just trying to get their foot in the door, show that they can do it, offer that same type of level of business cadence. But it's not about wearing a suit and tie or how you talk, how you deliver that content or that, you know, pitch to the audience and stakeholders. It's more about authenticity, who you are, and just being able to be committed to the work, and being able to show up and deliver. So, yeah. Exist Design Co. You can find me at exist.co. That's XXIST.co.
We'll put a little blip right over
Yeah,
there or
yeah,
something like
yeah,
that. Yeah, a
yeah.
little lower thirds or whatever. But
Lower
yeah, man, I
thirds.
feel like that's essential to business to always like scale, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yes.
And that's kind of what you're doing really. You're implementing systems to make it easier for you to scale as a one-man agency.
Right.
And
As well as my clients too.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And allowing them to like do things to a certain level, and also that's I feel like your abilities that you've kind of like sharpened over the past, like your design style and your talent that you've built up over these years of experience. I think that's gonna like really shine when you start to tackle this one man agency. It's gonna allow you to be really efficient, allow them to get real value and see that like right away, just by the conversations that you have with them. I think they're gonna really see that knowledge come through in those initial consultations. So yeah, man, I'm super stoked. I'm glad that you've taken that leap, I guess you could say, to really put your foot down and say, I am going to do this. And you're actively making progress on your website. And by the time this comes out, it'll probably be up and running and allowed to take payments. And you might even have a couple clients on roster by the time this comes out. I mean, hopefully, this comes out ASAP. But yeah, man, I think that's something huge that a lot of people should also kind of adopt the mindset of, just like, if you want to do it and you see somebody else doing it, just know that you can
bro.
too. And it's
Great artist still,
like,
bro. I'm one of those. Like, I don't even know. I mean, a lot of people have their own theology on how they approach it, and I mean, that's to each his own. But I mean, in good trade, a lot of people, great artists, they steal. When you're learning traditionally, you're gonna, copy something. You're gonna look at the greats and try to emulate their techniques, so that way you can implement those same techniques in your own processes. And so, like, when it came to seeing that format, and of course, we all know it's not something new, but I think ideally what we see that's being new, that's implemented into that strategy, is being able to adopt all aspects of what you can offer as far as core brand and web design, and being able to facilitate them both at a high level. And I think it's like, when you see the quality of work coming out of that agency, not only him being a one-man agency at that, but the quality of work and being able to earn that kind of revenue, it definitely kind of it gives you shiny object syndrome. So this is definitely just me go at it. Obviously, I'm gonna be trying to heavy market this. Prior to, just like, I was heavily influenced to market what I was doing with my brand before, because exists, like, yeah, if you've been around, man, the site has taken like many different changes and different facelifts over the years, going from heavy illustrative and mad animations everywhere to something real soft, subtle, and like trying to create more of an accessible approach to the more premium and luxurious brands. Now I'm kind of scaling things back, but trying to find a happy medium where it
like in
is
the
just
middle,
like
yeah.
a good product, that where it's something that everybody can kind of approach at regardless of what level you're at, where it can kind of be acceptable to large teams, but also people kind of getting their foot in the door. And so I'm hoping I'm covering all my bases here with this one. So we'll see. Yeah, man, I'm excited.
Heck yeah, man. No, I'm excited for you, bro. I mean, I think there's still even a lot of things that we're gonna be able to do together too,
Yes,
man.
sir.
Just like as a collective. I think, it's just yeah, I'm stoked, man. I'm super
Yes, sir.
glad that you were able to do this here with me, man. There's one thing I want to touch on that's not necessarily like sequential,
Yeah, yeah.
but your love for the game of pool. So when I met you,
Okay.
probably, I don't even know, maybe it was like the same year that I met you, but when we were working at American Airlines. I'll
Damn.
never forget the first time you showed up with your own pool stick. And it was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
very first time that I ever seen one of my friends have their own pool stick. Because my cousin back in the day, she used to play in leagues, and she had her own pool stick, and I thought like that was crazy. Like, whoa, like professional pool, like that's wild. But then when I saw one of my friends do it, I was like, whoa, like, should I get a pool stick? Because I like pool too. Growing up, I was playing it. So like I remember that was one thing. Like I was first off like surprised that you liked pool, and second surprised that you had your own pool stick. But how did your like love for the game of pool start?
So, shoot, it probably came around like when my mom got married. I was probably like 13 or so. She's not married anymore. She divorced a long time ago. But when we moved in with her former husband, we ended up getting a pool table in our loft, and I was early through my high school years. You know what I'm saying? I used to invite all the homies over. Yeah, it's gonna have to be probably like a part two to this bad boy because back in the day, man, yeah, my house was a spot from the dance crew we used to operate, bro. We had a crump crew,
Oh,
bro.
we'll
Like
definitely have you on for
we
part
had
two.
yeah, that was the spot though. We used to come through, play pool. We had a pool and everything, so everybody used to come swim in my house. So like, yeah, it was a cool setup. But early in the days, that was like where it all started for me. Um, I didn't always have my stick. It was probably when I moved out, and I was able to have my own spot. And it was just like I was out on Mill Avenue, and I was able to kind of facilitate that move where I was able to go to Mill Q Club, and
Oh
Mill
yeah.
was accessible to me, and I was like, yo, I did that every night, and that was just kind of like a hobby for me. I would go to work, go home, go straight down to the Q Club, or there was a bar called the what was that place called? Q something. There was something. It was back there off of Southern and Mill, behind the Yucca Tap Room and stuff like that. Uh, so I used to go out and just play pool all night, and my problem was morely just like being able to be at these nice tables, but the pool sticks were shitty, because college town kids just didn't care about
Right.
things, and the tables could be shitty because there's beer all over them, or the tips were chipped. And as I was just trying to figure out how to play better and better, I started to realize it was the stick does matter. And when I realized, these sticks just didn't do much for my game, but I was still able to manage, you know what I'm saying? It started to wonder for me, what would it be if I was to just have my own stick? And I saw the old timers, and anybody that was just really into it,
Show up with the stick.
they
Yeah.
had their own stick,
Show up
and
with the
so
glove and everything.
yeah, right.
Crazy.
That's that next level. But
Uh,
yeah, the glove does have, when you want that bad boy to glide, you want it to hit, you want to add some English to the ball, you start to realize, okay, there's something here. There's something here. There's some science to it.
for
And
sure.
yeah, man, it was a hobby for me. Being able to just, work, travel whenever, play pool. I was just I was still in my phase of discovery. I had my laptop and my little station set up at home. I had my PlayStation 4, my little studio apartment. I was happy,
Yeah.
man. I was just like, I'm good. I could fly where I want.
Yeah.
Got pool down the street, little college area. I was
Late
still kind of,
20s, baby.
you know what I'm saying? I was
Yeah.
like, I'm still, yeah, we're good, bro.
Yeah.
And I'm figuring out this career shit. I'm freelancing low key. I was doing some small branding stuff for people who were like trying to cover up small mom and pop companies,
This is while you were at American
musicians.
Airlines?
Oh yeah, this is
Yeah,
what I was still
while
at.
you were at
We're,
AA.
we're American Early. Yeah, I was still doing like album covers. You know what I'm saying? I was still had like a DSLR
Oh
where I
yeah,
was
like
still like,
Canon. Yeah,
yeah, you know what I
yeah.
mean? I was like doing like music videos and stuff. I was like, I could do some short form shit. I wasn't doing nothing crazy, but I could do some stuff. I was still more into like motion graphics and trying to implement animations and like do all the effect stuff than I was into like heavy color grading and getting everything shot at a certain focal length. And it was later that I started to understand that stuff, but I didn't have the equipment to facilitate it. And so I had to make a decision. I
Yeah.
was like, do I need a better computer to facilitate, the design and having like these software licenses and things like that? You know what I'm saying? Or, I'm saying prioritize the DSLR. I'm like, overall, it's all expensive. I was like, but for me right now, I needed to focus on this stuff at a core before I can open up more in that area. And so that's just kind of the avenue and I stayed in my lane and just like started diving deep into the code. And I got heavy. Once you get into code, it's a whole nother monster. Now I'm writing HTML, CSS, and trying to understand how, JS libraries can connect to this stuff to implement a web experience that, can emulate something fun that's not just static and can make it enjoyable but also accessible to anybody. So though that has now been my new calling and my new obsession. So um, that has been my powerhouse, to try to level things up for everybody. So
Yeah, hell yeah. It's funny how we ended up on code by talking about pool.
yeah, oh goddamn, see, bro.
I
Yeah,
love
bro.
that.
That's how I am, bro.
No,
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, but it just kind of like
It's
talks
my
about like
obsession. Now you see how it all comes back together. It's crazy.
numbers, bro.
Right,
Pool
bro.
is just numbers.
You know what? Now I'm gonna
Pool
make
is
some
just HTML code.
facts, geometry.
Yeah.
It's all math.
Literally,
baby.
it was just triangles.
It's all math,
just
baby.
triangles,
It is
bro.
all math, man. Yeah, man. Once you let loose, you'll see it's all math.
For sure. You kind of touched on like when you were getting into like DSLRs and like making music videos and
Back in
stuff.
the day,
and
man. I
You
was
and
just
you and the
doing.
homies, you guys used to
I
write
used to even do music.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
you
did
were
music
making music
videos.
as Kizo Sick.
Kizo sick. Yeah,
Kizo Sick, cause he's so sick,
that was it.
baby.
The life of a little young thing, growing old with scars and jaded fame, forced to live a world full of pain. Let me be receptive if your style ain't running game. I wanna take position with you, watch me stay up in my lane. That was it.
Yeah, you
in
you
the
had
day.
videos out. I feel like a lot of creatives can, like the DIY creatives, can relate to like wanting to do it all, and
Yep.
like especially if like you have the ability to, and even if that is by way of pirated software and you know, finding key generators and cracks and stuff like that, just to use the stuff. It's not like you're
Facts.
making money off of it.
Because I mean, we
Yeah.
were gated, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you grew up in that same era in a way. I mean, of course, the opportunity still blossomed as you were growing up, and technology is way different. We're not too far off in age, but still, this stuff was Adobe and like all those institutions. They still kind of have that heavily gated influence. It's like
For
this is
sure.
tech, and this stuff is only for certain individuals that were able to acquire either the money, the means, or the knowledge. And if
Right.
you didn't have that stuff, people treated you a certain way as if they weren't willing to let you in. It was really truly those who empowered, you know, YouTube and took those resources to say, I think other people should know about this stuff too. And they should understand what we're doing because it's no different from what they're doing. We're just treating it as if it is. And we're trying to uphold to a certain standard, and so we have to let go of that sense of like, you know, stereotype and discrimination, almost that sense of bureaucracy that people kind of dominate on, where they feel like, you know, this stuff is only for people, and there's that kind of like bureaucracy that always, you know, exists in certain like certain career paths and certain cultures. It's like, I think at a time when technology was still not as consumer friendly, people still tried to portray that way. And so once we kind of got access, you know, that's when like the doors really started to open up. And
Totally.
so like I feel you, like we had no choice almost. I feel like because we were still trying to figure it all out and nobody was again allowing us that stuff. So like for me, I still like take joy in like doing um, you know, motion graphics and still like getting heavy in behind like a DSLR if I'm gonna like capture a few things just so I can add some like animations and things like that to it. So I still like have fun and liberties to that just as well as I still dance because it's still like, you know, that's just my form of like staying healthy, you know.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's just like, so it's still like, I guess it's just a matter of like I still do these things to support the thing that truly does like resonate heavy with me. And I feel like every aspect of what those things do still heavily support that thing. And I always felt like it was okay for me to just get a taste. You know what I'm saying? I was like, a taste of everything. I didn't have to be like, I didn't have to be the famous guy. You know what I'm saying? I was just happy to just like to try it out and do it a little bit and to know that I was able to do it. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And it kind of just, I think that was me just trying to figure out if I wanted it or not, but not to put too much effort into it to a point where it was gonna, you know, make me lose what I was already at grips with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't know. It was just like, yeah, like growing up, those are my things. But art, you know, again, it was always my session. I think I figured that out early, and so it was always something that I always pursued, um, and knew that everything else was kind of a support of that in a way. I think, yeah, again, music, acting, and things like that was probably like the only thing that kind of closed in early for that. Because again, like growing up, when you like the early church kids, you know, what I mean, we're singing, we're dancing,
Oh
we're
yeah.
doing plays on Sundays. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's like we are like being conditioned early for like a lifestyle of like, you know, being at the center of it all. And so although it wasn't my calling, I think it definitely helped influence my connections and my relationships, and you know the people that really like was willing to grow and do this stuff with me. Hell, it got me, you know, right here on Mars. You know what I'm saying? We wish y'all could be here with us, but you know, y'all don't, you know, the tickets is expensive, you know what I'm saying? Y'all, if y'all call Bezos, you know, he might, you get on his dick mobile, he'll fly you up here, folks, on God. But you know, I'm glad to be here with my boy. We doing great things, and I can't wait to see what happens next, bro. So,
Thank you, man. No, I think that's a good place to wrap it up, man. No, it's like it's beautiful. I'm like I said earlier, one of my first friends here that I met in Arizona. We're out here in Scottsdale. But I've seen him grow so much through all these stories. You know, we've heard today. I've known him since 2016, 15.
sheesh.
Whoa. Crazy.
Good
2015. So it's
times.
been a long time, man. It's like we've both grown so much, and I'm grateful that I'm able to still have him as a close friend. You know, they say something like if you can have a friend for more than 7 years or something like that, then like they become like a lifetime friend
Okay,
or
okay.
so I really feel like with my close friends like Akili, I don't know, a lot of people could probably relate to this too. There could be months that go by that I don't talk to him, and then I'll call him one random day, or he'll text me or call me, and then it'll just be like we picked up right where we left off.
Thanks.
And I do really appreciate that friendship, man. And no,
Bro.
thank you so much for being on Mars with me today,
sir.
bro.
Yes,
My
sir.
dog. Everybody go follow Akili online at Akili Greer at XXIST Co. On Instagram. I'll put the little things up in the screen. Go to XXIST.co. That's his website. Should be up and running now. Check him out if you need any type of graphic design needs, anything from animation to brand identity. Check out his website, see what he offers. Check out his work, look at his portfolio. I'll put some examples in the video as well as we're kind of talking about it. But yeah, follow me at On Mars Pod, at Harry Mars _. Thank you, my fellow Martians. Love you guys so much. We'll see you next time. Like and subscribe. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in and watching this episode of the On Mars Pod, and for sticking around to the end, man. I really appreciate you guys. You are the real Martians. Like this video, comment below what your favorite part was, what was most inspiring to you. Subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications here on future interviews coming out soon, and also follow us on Instagram at On Mars Pod. Love you guys so much. We'll see you next time on Mars.